Thank you for joining the Marketing Conversation channel. I'm your channel host Rendani. Today I'm focusing on the all-important subject of how to develop a questionnaire. This is part of the series number 4, which is about how to conduct market research. So we're still focusing on that series, just adding the topic of the questionnaire. As you would know, the definition of marketing includes collection of data, and in the process of collecting data you need to have an instrument that will help you do so, and this is why the questionnaire comes in very handy. By definition, a questionnaire is a structured tool that you use to collect information from your target audience. And now there are steps that are involved in the development of questionnaire. First step, you need to select your target audience. Who is it that you are going to collect your information from? You need to be clear about that. As a business, you might have different segments of customers, business to business. You could be selling to other businesses, you could be selling to the elderly, to the youth. So you have to define, are you going to be talking to all of them, or are you going to focus on a specific segment? Other considerations when you're selecting your target audience, it's important to be clear as to what is it that you want to know from your customers, and you also need to make sure that your questions are time efficient and easy to understand. You also need to consider that people generally hate to complete forms, so the easier you make it for them, the better. And you can make it easy by simplifying the questionnaire, avoiding too many questions, and it's recommended that the questions should not be more than 7. Also, you need to sell the benefits of the research. I know that in academic research is the questionnaire can be very long, but in business, where we want to hit the bull's eye immediately, we recommend that you should have them as short as possible. Now, you also need to avoid leading questions. For example, don't say, do you prefer the red dress? Instead, say, what color do you prefer? Also, I found from experience that it's much easier to talk to respondents in person, because that way they cannot put it off. Unlike when you've just emailed them a questionnaire, you'll be hard pressed to make sure that they eventually complete the questionnaire and send it back to you. If at all is possible, do it in person so that you can make sure that it's done and it is done properly. The other important consideration is that the sample should be big enough. For example, you cannot, if you have got 1,000 customers or 1,000 target audience in number, it doesn't make sense to interview 4. The starting point is recommended that you should at least have 400 respondents in order to draw useful conclusion and credible conclusion at that. Step number 2, you need to decide which customers you are going to interview. I talked about different segments of your customers. Make a decision, who are you going to talk to? There is this rule called Pareto analysis, which basically says that, and check it out, you'll see how true it is. It basically says 80% of the money that you make comes from 20% of your customers, and 20% of the money that you make comes from 80% of your customers. So it's very important to make sure that your research is focused on people who are buying the bacon for your business. Step number 3, test the questionnaire. This is where you go and practically make sure that this is where the rubber hits the ground, by making sure that you test it in real life circumstances, taking into cognizance whether respondents understand you, or time and again they are having to ask you what is it that you mean. You must also check at the relevance of responses. You must also check at the duration, how long it takes for you to get the information. Step number 4, this is where you can refine and finalize the questionnaire, taking into account the challenges that you came into during the field testing. And number 5, you implement the questionnaire, is the final step. And here you have to take into account to make sure that questions are not misunderstood out of context. The recording of answers needs to be very easy to read, because if you rush through the recording process, you are going to come through the challenges when you have to process. Where you don't understand, you need to probe, ask questions, ask deeper questions, probing questions. Yes, an example of a questionnaire is structured administration side, where it's got the date, customer name, details, and the questionnaire number, and the questions. For example, this is a customer needs analysis of a grocery store, and they say, do you buy groceries? Here you want to eliminate yes or no. If they say no, they're eliminated. You don't go forward. Number 2, what are the things that you consider? You want to establish the things that they consider when buying. You list them on the questionnaire. Number 3, where else do you often buy your groceries if you don't buy from us? They give you the name of your competitors, and then you tell them, compare us in terms of the things that you look for: convenience, operating hours, all those kind of things that they've mentioned to you. You want to check your competitive advantage. Number 4, why do you buy groceries from where you said other suppliers other than ourselves? You want to get to know the strengths of your competitors. And finally, the recommendations. You get the recommendations from your customers. And step number 6, data processing. This is where you have to organize your data. There's numerical data that can be organized as follows: discrete data, which has to be gathered through counting, for example, number of business customers that your business have. There is continuous data, which you can only measure in order to understand what is happening. For example, the length of time employees are on lunch. And then data processing. As far as processing of data, you say, for example, you have conducted a competency test and scored your employees out of total score of 100, and you get the following results. This is where you count the number of those who obtained between 30 and 39, and then you list them 1, 2, 3, 4, between 40 and 49, just like that, and you are recording, and you get your frequencies there. You've got 5, 7, and let's look at how you can display the same information that you got. This is how you display. You can display using a bar chart there, and you also need to score to interpret. You analyze and then you interpret. The result that you got is telling that between 30 and 39 is 5, between 40 and 49 is 7, and the interpretation, the most important interpretation can be that the most important aspect of data interpretation is to identify patterns and the possible explanation of these patterns. And for example, most of your employees fall between the category of 40 and 49. It's part of the interpretation. You are analyzing and interpreting. That is the interpretation. The employees that obtain the least score are 5. The majority of employees scored 4. That's what I was saying. That is your interpretation. And that concludes our topic on questionnaire development. I hope you found this useful, and I'm looking forward to meeting you during the next session. Cheers.